Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSP Magazine. You're listening to a new The Changemaking podcast with Chloé Messdaghi. Each episode will introduce an area of technology that needs work and highlight the changemakers working on it. Join Chloé and guests as they tap into their passion about equity and rights for all. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
Welcome to another episode of the Changemaking podcast on ITSP Magazine. And with me today, I have Tennisha Martin, who's the Executive Director and Chairwoman at BlackGirlsHack. Tennisha, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Chloé. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so excited and happy to have you on here and for our listeners to basically learn about BlackGirlsHack. For those that aren't aware, BlackGirlsHack was created in 2020. It's created to provide resources and train access to Black girls and women to increase their representation in cybersecurity. It is a 501c3 organization. But I want to know the behind story. Tennisha, why don't you share of what made you want to create BlackGirlsHack?
BlackGirlsHack was basically created out of my own struggles trying to get into cybersecurity full time. I felt like I was checking all of the boxes, and I have degrees, and I've got some certifications, and I've got 15 years of experience in consulting. And I was applying for jobs, and I was hearing absolutely nothing back. And I realized that, there were probably people out there who were also having trouble getting into, cybersecurity. So I kind of try to approach this as I would, hacking into something. What's the best way to get into cybersecurity that will allow other people to be able to kind of reproduce, those steps to get in there, more efficiently. So we started having meetups to talk about things in cybersecurity. Study groups to study for the Certified Ethical Hacker exam. And I realized that there were a lot of people besides me that were also in kind of like the same boat. So somebody reached out to me and they were like, hey, there are grants out there for people who are, doing the work that you're doing that can help to be able to fund it. So at the time, I had never even, I probably in the back of my mind thought about, incorporating into a nonprofit. But at the time, it was just an Instagram page where I was sharing resources and information, and we were all going to try to work together to try to get into cybersecurity. And when I got this message, and I don't to this day know who that person was that sent me the message, it was like kind of like an anonymous email, like, hey, you should do this. And so I, started the process of going through the nonprofit paperwork, and we actually didn't get the paperwork done, get it approved, because there was a backup due to the pandemic with the office that approves them for the nonprofits. But, we eventually got approved as a 501c3 organization. And it just has grown, I think from there. We started off and it was me just basically teaching 6 days a week, ethical hacking things to people. And we would probably get, around 20 or 30 people who would, come out and, and try to hack with us. And, we've grown so much since then, our services have kind of expanded as I've seen, like what people need, to be able to, reproduce, the process of getting into cybersecurity. What's the most efficient way to get people in there? So, now we do things like mentoring and resume reviews and, like mock interviews to help people get in, and then as well as offer, study groups and, just anything that allows people to kind of like reduce some of the barriers to entry. So, BlackGirlsHack just basically grew out of, the frustration of, myself and, at some point, lots of other people who were trying to get into cybersecurity and were like, why is there no, I guess kind of like entry level market for cybersecurity professionals? Why does everybody want, like a CISSP and 3 to 5 years of experience for what they're considering to be, entry level, I'm just trying to get my foot in the job type of roles. So it was just basically, my own struggle, that, I wanted to hack and I wanted to get paid for it. And I wanted to transition out of, IT. And, it was just like, hey, there are other people who are trying to do the same thing.
So Tennisha, what was the thing that brought you wanting to get into cybersecurity?
For most of my career, I've been in, quality assurance, and, trying to antagonize the developers of the world. And when I started thinking about hacking and I started thinking about, just web application security, it was a natural extension of what I was already doing, which is just antagonizing a different set of developers. So it was just like, hey, there are people who get paid to do this. And I thought that was the most amazing thing in the world. So I started, teaching myself on like things like Try Hack Me, to try to get in, because I saw that there was a whole career out there, a whole, area of jobs where, people just actually just get paid to try to, break into things and to try to, find things that people didn't think about. So for me, I think that kind of drove me, towards in that direction.
And since you've, created BlackGirlsHack, what are the age ranges that you've been helping a lot? And is there any particular age range that you're now trying to target more towards?
Yeah, so we have, I think our primary demographic is from 24 to 34, and the next biggest one in the bell curve is, 18 to 24. So, when you look at it, it's basically from 18 to, let's call it 35 or so is what most of the people in the squad is comprised of. So we don't necessarily have a target per se, as much as, anybody who wants to come and hack with us. I get the question all the time, do you have to be a woman? Do you have to be a girl? Do you have to, just the things that are in the title? And the answer is absolutely not. We at this point have, I think it's maybe 60% women, 40%, either male or non-binary. So it's grown over the years, from being, just mostly women. And then now the men see that, it's fine for them to be there. They don't have to lurk. So, they're a lot more vocal, a lot more involved in a lot of the day-to-day. We also have a kids program, which is called BlackGirlsHack, which is focused on the K through 12. And it's specifically meant to just provide exposure in the K through 12 to careers in cybersecurity, so that, people can find out at a younger age that there are careers out here that they can do, especially when we start looking at things like the gamification of cybersecurity and like capture the flags. I want them to know that there are careers out there, because, when you start to figure out, what do you want to be when you grow up, a lot of times people don't know that cybersecurity is a thing. They haven't been exposed to it. They don't see people who are in the space, especially people who look like them. So, we're trying to, provide an exposure campaign to just make sure that they are able to know that, there are, red teams, there's blue teams, there's, so many things that can be done in cybersecurity that are lucrative careers, and it's something that they can consider when they're trying to figure out, what their place in the world is.
I absolutely love that, especially the BlackGirlsHack program. Reason for that is because so I grew up in Oakland, and I went to Oakland public schools, and we had like one STEM program, but it was like it lasted for 1 year, and then they took it off the shelves because like we don't have funding for it. So any type of programs that are out there that can like really come into general education space and being like, hey, this is something that you may not have heard of, but there's plenty of roles in this career. And, you don't necessarily need a degree in it. It might help you, but you don't necessarily need a degree. You just have to be very curious and motivated at the end of the day.
And I think that that's one of the things I love absolutely most about cybersecurity. Some of the dopest hackers I know don't have a degree, don't have, a formal education in, ethical hacking or computer science or programming. A lot of the things that, people try to assume that you have to have, like, hey, I'm not good at math. I can never be a hacker, right? You don't even have to do anything that has to do with math for the most part in ethical hacking. So, people assume that you have to be very technical. But there are so many, different roles in cybersecurity. And, like you said, they don't necessarily require that you have a degree or specific certifications. There are people who are not just surviving, but thriving in the cybersecurity space who haven't done those. Haven't done those things. So, it's just more so an issue of, how hard are you willing to work? Are you willing to practice? Because, this, like if you wanted to be a professional sports player or a professional, chess person, a chess player, you have to practice, you have to put in the time, you have to make sure that you're constantly working to enhance your skills. Right. And if you're willing to put in that time, anybody can be good, in this space. It's not something that, cut off, entire portions of the population. It's just a matter of whether you have the curiosity, whether you have the, tenacity, the willingness to put in the time and effort to, continually grow and get better at your skill.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like, especially when you're trying to enter this space, like you mentioned earlier, like they'll be like, you need to have a cert, 3 to 5 years of, experience for an entry level role. Our industry, like many other industries, have a practicing of gatekeeping. And one of the things of getting out of that is mentoring. And I know that's something that, BlackGirlsHack has been doing a tremendous amount in. Do you mind sharing a little bit about how people can get involved in the mentoring program?
Absolutely. This is one of the biggest things that I try to promote in BlackGirlsHack is the mentoring piece, because, if you listen to like my story and you listen to a lot of people's stories, you'll hear that we've hit a lot of road bumps. We've hit a lot of, this is not the most efficient way to do this. So, I want people to be able to use the experience of the people who've been in the industry for a little while, to be able to, make their routes a lot more efficient. So, you get that kind of experience, in terms of what should I be asking for as salary? What can I expect day to day from my role from mentors? Which is why I think it's so important that we have a wide variety of mentors in our program. A lot of times I'll have men who will reach out to me, who will say, hey, I'm a cis white male, can I be a mentor? And I'm like, the industry is full of, cis white men. If we even try to exclude, a certain group of people, then we wouldn't have that experience. We wouldn't have that wealth of knowledge, of what the industry has been over the last, however many years at this point. Right. So, we need, everybody to come out and share their experience, talk about, what people should be, asking for as far as salary negotiations, what types of jobs should they be looking, how can they define their careers for themselves? Because there's no, one set path. So, if anyone listening is interested in, mentoring and, just, donating an hour of your life a month to somebody who's trying to, get into the field, our website, blackgirlshack.org/mentor, has our mentoring plan, which describes, the mentoring program, how people can get involved, what the relationship looks like between a mentor and a mentee, in terms of communication and how that basically relationship goes. Because I tell people in our squad all of the time that mentoring is, very much so a relationship, right? I'll have people who drop in my inbox, that I've never met before, spoken before, in LinkedIn and say, hey, can you mentor me? And I tell people that that's pretty much the same as, dropping into someone's inbox and saying, hey, will you marry me? Right? Because it's a relationship between, two people that's, you're asking them to help you. You're asking them to give you their expertise, their experience to, help make your career a little bit more efficient based on their experience. And that's not just something that you should enter in lightly. It's a two-way relationship. It's a two-way, conversation where there's, both give and take. And it's important that, people realize that when they're asking people to mentor them, because, it's them taking time out of their day, to help you, but then it's also like they're getting something as well, so that they can be able to get back and, know what's important, as far as the next generation. So I definitely think it's important that, we have mentors in every area of cybersecurity, so that, we can have that experience. We don't just have, hackers, as much as much to my dismay in BlackGirlsHack. We've got, GRC people, we've got blue teamers, we've got a little bit of everybody in there. And we need, the experience of a little bit of everybody in terms of mentoring as well.
I absolutely love that. On so many levels. Like I never thought about, when someone messages and like, hey, I'm looking for a mentor. Can you be my mentor? It's like, I don't know you. Let's slowly build a relationship. Slow down. Whoa now. But yeah, I mean, one of the things like with mentoring is like, as a mentor, you learn so much from your mentee. Like it is a reciprocal relationship where you're learning so much from each other. And it's a beautiful thing because that's what having a good mentoring relationship is about, is like you're growing out, you're learning from each other's experience, and you get stronger that way. That's the way we learn, is by sharing knowledge at the end of the day. And I know that for some people, they may struggle to be able to donate their time through mentoring. However, I know that, donations are always in need for a nonprofit. And I know that you guys are going to be doing a Girls Hack Village at DEF CON. And also you're trying to get some hackers sponsored in your organization. So let's talk about both of those. Which one would you like to tackle first?
I want to start with Girls Hack Village because I'm so excited about it. We actually went to Black Girls Hack, went to DEF CON last year for the first time. And I got to be a part of the Blacks in Cybersecurity Village, which I think that was the first time that a Black organization had the opportunity to have, basically their own village at DEF CON. And for anybody who's not familiar, villages are just basically a mini conference inside of the larger conference where, all of the content in terms of the talks and the workshops are on specific topics. And for them, it was the issues surrounding Black people in cybersecurity industry. So given that that demographic was already handled by the Blacks in Cybersecurity Village, we kind of approached this from the perspective of, women being represented at the conference. And I think in the past, the history of DEF CON, there have definitely been women sponsored villages, but, there haven't been there in a while. So we thought that, we could, one, represent women, the interest of women in the space, and then also, of hackers in the space. Because, DEF CON being one of the largest hacker conferences in the world, it's the place where people go to network, to meet other people, to see the research that's being done in various areas. So, we took a chance, shot our shot, and our village got accepted. So I'm very excited about that. And we've got an amazing lineup of women, change makers in the space who are going to be speaking at our village. So I'm very excited, that we're going to be able to have content that will be able to highlight women in the space. Because when we think about hackers, a lot of time we don't think about women. Women represent, only 25% or less of the space. So that's why I'm so excited about the Girls Hack Village and being able to see ourselves represented in there. The other thing that we're trying to do, last year we were able to get through raising donations 7 people to DEF CON. So my goal for this year was to bring 20 people to summer camp. So Hacker Summer Camp is basically Black Hat, DEF CON. There's also B-Sides, Las Vegas, that's at the same time. Diana Initiative has their conference during that week as well. And it's basically a lot of cybersecurity conferences that are packed into that 1 week in Las Vegas. So it's an opportunity for, just a meeting of minds, of networking, of learning, getting training, so many things. So we're trying to get 20 people there who would otherwise not necessarily be able to go. One of the things I realized when we got the 7 people there last year was that it was ridiculously expensive. The rooms were, I think, $150 a night. And the tickets for Black Hat are $2,000 and DEF CON tickets, I think $300. So when we added that up, it ended up being, at least a $1,500 investment per person to be able to go. So we wanted to, just in terms of our mission with Black Girls Hack, in terms of reducing some of the barriers to entry, kind of like reduce some of those financial barriers to entry to make this available to people who otherwise wouldn't be able to go. So we're raising money to get 20 people into summer camp. We actually haven't announced it yet. So this is kind of like breaking news for your podcast, that we are partnering with Black Hat USA, and they've donated 25 tickets to the squad so that we can, be able to get in, which is huge because, like I said, those tickets are normally $2,000 a person. And that gets us into the Black Hat. And then we have raised money for 14 people so far for DEF CON to cover like their transportation costs in terms of their flights, the ticket, and then their hotel stay once they get there. So we've got 14 people who've been sponsored. We need, 6 more to raise funds for 6 more people. And to sponsor one person is $1,500. So hopefully that makes sense. I feel like I'm, talking so quickly because I'm so excited about it. But we're definitely trying to raise money to get people to the summer camp, especially to be able to check out our Girls Hack Village, which I hope we'll be able to bring to many conferences in the future, so that women, especially women hackers, can have a representation in a space that's generally very much so male.
Yeah, I would say I definitely am applauding on that one silently. But yeah, you only need like 6 people left.
Yes.
So, okay. All right. So how can companies get involved now? Say if a company wants to take all these 6 people and, sponsor them. How do partnerships work? Let's just broadly, how do partnerships work with Black Girls Hack?
So we've got 2 types of partnerships that we generally do. The ones that I generally seek out are the ones where they're providing, training to people, because our end goal at the end of the day is to reduce the barriers to entry and to actually get people into careers in cybersecurity, right? So, training partnerships. So we've got some of those with some organizations like Range Force and INE. And like CompTIA, where we have, either a discount or, vouchers that are provided to us for us to be able to, help people to, get into the industry, and all they have to worry about is actually studying. The other types of partnerships that we'll do are when organizations decide that they want to just donate either money to us or donate something that, helps us along this way. Some companies donate like, DEF CON tickets, or some companies will donate, just money. And they can do that through our website, blackgirlshack.org/donate. And we're a 501c3 organization. So of course, those contributions are tax deductible. But there's a lot of different ways. We've had organizations who've just said, hey, we want to, give our employees the opportunity or a place to come and give back in terms of teaching workshops or spreading information in a variety of areas. And I absolutely love those because, without knowing what's possible, they have nothing to, aspire to, so I think it's important that people see, what are people that are actually in the industry doing? So, there are companies that just say, hey, we'll either match monetary donations and or time donations. We'll get people to come out and, work with the organization, to teach something, for example. And those are a lot of different ways that I think companies can kind of partner with us to, kind of give back. Even we had a workshop last month with the Senate Placement Committee because they are trying to increase diversity. So they came out and talked to the people about how they can apply, about the different jobs that are available, so that our organization can apply to those jobs and be able to get consideration. Because a lot of times, when you go through, I call it the front door of submitting your resume, you'll get instant rejection. And I got a lot of that, as I was trying to transition. So, we're trying to, as much as possible, make it easier for people so that they don't have to go through that same, cycle of rejection and, disappointment and just, feeling like you're not going to be good enough in order to, be able to succeed in the industry, right? Because we want to encourage people to get in as opposed to, discourage them. So, anything that, an organization is willing to do, we will accept it. We definitely want to be able to give back to our organization and to help to grow.
Absolutely. I mean, it's challenging, to be in an industry and, you enter rooms, no one looks like you. It makes you feel like you have imposter syndrome, like Absolutely. As if I don't belong here or I can't belong here. But then you realize you don't have imposter syndrome. What it is the system itself. It's not it's not opened enough yet.
And I agree.
Yeah. But I'm so proud of the work you've been doing. Like Tennisha, I've been following, since the launch, and kudos to you for creating this. And I know it's making a huge impact in our industry.
Yeah, I wish I could take all of the credit for all of the things. We've had a lot of success, but it's honestly, we've got a team of volunteers that help to make things, work. And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be able to do the things that, we do. I wish I could say that I was, solely responsible for, all of the amazingness that's happening, in the trajectory of Black Girls Hack, but it's not. I've got an amazing team, which is built of volunteers. None of us are actually getting paid to do this work. So it's just like a labor of love for us. Which is why it's so important that we get, additional volunteers so that, we can continue to grow and continue to make an impact in the industry.
Love it. Okay. So if anyone is listening in and is thinking, so how can I get involved to volunteer? What kind of volunteering positions do you have at this time? Tennisha, do you mind sharing a little bit?
Absolutely. So our website, blackgirlshack.org/volunteer, has the general sign up for volunteers. We have, I think it's 8 different departments, which pretty much look like, most companies that you'll see in the industry, in terms of we've got technology people and security people and operations people. And we need, volunteers in all of those areas. We need project managers. We need defense people who can help to make sure that, we're staying safe as a cybersecurity organization. We need people to help, do all of the things like the mentoring and the resume reviews and just, simple things like, making sure that we get volunteers onboarded. So we've got so many opportunities. And I don't think that we've, had many instances of, turning people down like, hey, we don't need your help, right? Because we've literally got, so many things that are available. We just ask that people, be good, human beings, and I think for us, one of the things I love most about Black Girls Hack is the community aspect. It's the feeling that, despite the fact that we're all very much so different, we're all interested in increasing diversity and making it, easier for people to get jobs and to be able to feel comfortable in cybersecurity. If people just have time that they're willing to donate, we can definitely find something that will allow you to help us to, I call it world domination, for us to take over the world, which is, basically everybody just trying to live their best lives and give back in a way that's meaningful, and will have a lasting impact in the industry and on other people.
Love it. Tennisha, is there any major takeaway that you want everyone to have at least from this conversation today?
Absolutely. I think change happens over time. So, when we're talking about, making change, I think it's important that, even if it's not Black Girls Hack, that, if you have a set of skills, if you have, time, if you've got excess funds, whatever you've got in excess of, that you share that with other people to help grow people in that area. I think even if it's not with Black Girls Hack, I think there are a lot of nonprofits out there that are doing a lot of amazing work, and we need people to, make it more inviting and comfortable for people who are, not the norm for the industry. I say, hey, look around you, see what you can give back, and see, what you can contribute to, helping to make somebody else's life a little bit better.
Absolutely love it. I have no conclusions on these fronts. That was perfect. Well, thank you, Tennisha, so much to be on here and sharing about the organization. And everyone, there's always something you can do for a nonprofit, whether it's giving your time, giving funds, or even just coming up with strategies that might work out for them. Even sending a person a message that you made, you still today don't know who it was, talking about, hey, there's some grants you should apply for. See, all these little things, they add up and they make things turn out to be beautiful. And it's all about contributing. So thank you, Tennisha, so much. It was lovely to have you.
Thank you for having me, Chloe. I appreciate the conversation. It's always a pleasure talking to you. So I'm thankful that you invited me.
Likewise.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Changemaking podcast with Chloé Messdaghi. If you learned something new and this podcast made you think, then share itspmagazine.com with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our podcast channels. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.